Hi and welcome back to PDA Dad UK. In this episode, I get to interview the fantastic David and Carrie Grant, and they talk about their lives as warrior parents. As I say, welcome back to PDA Dad UK. Before we go on, please do go hit like, hit subscribe, ring the bell. You'll always know when new content's coming up. As I say, in this episode, I'm going to be interviewing David and Carrie Grant with my colleague and cohort, Chris, from the Grumpy Gits. Now, this is an extended version of the interview we did with the Grumpy Gits, so it's been expanded out and you get the full interview over here. So enjoy it. They are amazing, amazing people, and it was just an inspiring conversation. We are here with the fantastic David and Carrie Grant. Guys, how are you doing?
We're good.
We're great. So glad to be here.
Yeah.
Likewise. This is fantastic. So do you want to just tell us a bit about your story?
You go.
So we have been married for 34 years. 34 years, and we have 4 children, 3 birth children, 1 adopted child, and they are a whole host of different neurodivergencies. They're incredible. So we went from thinking, okay, this is how we're going to parent. We'll probably have 2 children and we're going to sit in restaurants and it's all lovely. And my children will not be on an iPad. They will be concentrating on the lovely discussion.
And everybody will look and say, now that's how you raise children. That's a family.
Yeah. It's amazing. I had the same thing. I used to mentally critique every other parent of how can you allow that to happen? Yes. That's ridiculous. And everybody was like, I had some friends in Australia who were had an autistic son, and I just think, geez, they go on about it, don't they? It can't be that bad. God has a sense of humour, clearly, because he sets it back.
Well, like most dreams, that one fell apart on its first contact with reality.
Yes. So that was not the family that we've ended up with, and thank God we haven't, actually, because the family we've got is just incredible.
Yeah.
But it isn't without its hilarity and challenges and inspiration and terror at times. So it's a bit more like this, parenting journey and us growing. I mean, yes. I feel like we could have done like the neurotypical pathway and just kind of rocked along as regular parents, and that would have been fine, but we wouldn't have learned all that we've learned, and we wouldn't be or have become who we are as people, as humans. I think that is just the journey of parenthood is extraordinary. If you can keep finding hope and you can keep making that journey up again, because sometimes you have really difficult lows. And if you can keep making that journey up, what we're learning in that space is it's brilliant. It's wonderful. That's the stuff that you then are able to use for campaigning and writing books and helping other people and, all of that stuff.
Obviously, you two, you've had a long career. How have you managed to find a balance between parenting and working at the same time? Because it's not really 9 to 5, is it? So how have you balanced and have you had much support with what you do as well?
Well, on the balance side, I'll let Carrie talk about the support side. On the balance side, I think that we decided at one point that we needed to almost job share. There was a point in our career where it was going that way, and it was the 2 of us working together and the 2 of us really making strides together, and everything that we did was kind of Carrie and David. And then we had a collision with reality, and reality wins, which means that one of us pretty much had to be there the whole time. There's an incredible thing about growing up ambitious. Even before we met each other, we've both been really ambitious for our careers and both wanting to achieve something. Then when you have a life in your hands and you have somebody who doesn't just depend on you in the way that children depend on you, but anybody who's listening to this who has an SCN kid will know that sometimes that dependency is a matter of life and death. Yeah. The ambitions actually get put on ice. They become totally irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
They become totally irrelevant. So actually, our careers, in many ways, we stopped having career plans and started basically going into survival plans sometimes. and that's where we've been pretty much ever since.
Yeah, and I think I think the job, I think in some ways, actually, if you have a job that's our job is, in some ways, it's inflexible, because if you've got a TV show, it's going to go out at that same time every week and you have to be there. But sometimes those things, like our radio show that we do, we're off air. We do Saturday mornings breakfast show on Radio London. We're done by 10 a.m. We're home at 11. So our kids are kind of, they're teens now, so they're kind of just getting out of bed at that point. So, you know, they don't even.
Or if they've been up all night on the PlayStation,
that,
they're getting into bed at that point. Yeah.
They don't know that we do a radio show. Wow. They think they're still in bed. Yeah. So I think that's one thing. But in terms of support, I think this is such a good question. Because I think when our children were younger, we could invite half a dozen friends who were kind of, they were TAs in schools, or they you know, understood children and could deal with different challenging behaviors that challenge. But then I think when our children got into their teens and the issues became, you know, we had a child on suicide watch for pretty much 3 years, on and off, in and out of hospital. And then it becomes really difficult, because how do you've got a child in hospital, first of all, so they're not even in the same location. Yeah. So then that support even becomes difficult, because that child doesn't want anyone but a parent there. No. And then we
used to tag team at that point.
So we tag team, and then obviously the impact of having a child who may not live impacted us and impacted the other children. So then their behaviors that challenge, they're more anxious, so they're more likely to have more, you know, difficulties. And so and then if you've got a child who's violent, which we've had, to say one childminder can come along, you know, one of my mates is going to come and help for a few hours, it just became, we had a circle of one. That one person has been able to help us, and that person is just like gold to us. They really are. And, you know, I guess we're all looking, as parents, aren't we? We're all looking for that one person that we can go, I'm really desperate, could you just help me out here? And if you've got one, that's great. That's why I really feel for anyone that is raising children that is doing that on their own, lone parents. Like our parents were both lone parents, but we were fairly straightforward children, or we thought we were. I think that it's very difficult if you're on your own, and that's why, I know I'm talking a lot, but that's why we started our parent support group, which grew from like 10 families to over 180 families. We've been doing it for 10 years now, but that group, even if we're not childminding for one another, just being able to say, are you finding this hard? Because I'm feeling like I'm at the end of my rope.
It's the question that's so rarely asked. I talked about this before. It's that thing where rightfully everything's focused on the individual who's, you know, so in this case, child, they're in hospital, they're on suicide watch, and everybody's focused on that. It's very rare does the question get asked, are you okay in all this? How can you be supported? Because support goes beyond just support for the individual. There's a group of people generally around. And what you're saying about finding someone who is your circle like that, we've been having this struggle. I've got to go to an award ceremony in a few weeks, and trying to find someone who can take care of our kids, mainly because, and this is what people don't realize, I think, is that when you've got a neurodivergent child, especially if they have the behaviors that challenge, if they're in that situation where, you know, at the flick of a switch, they can go from appearing very calm, very sedate to She-Hulk in our situation, you know, and it unless you've got somebody who understands that and has worked with that and lives with or understands it from the inside, you're scared to leave a child with anybody else.
And the other thing as well, of course, Duncan, is that you both understand this, that you want to leave your child with somebody who A, gets it, and B, isn't a judge. Because, you know, like 90% of the people you meet who do not have anything to do with SEN or neurodivergent children know exactly how to raise your child. If you only did this, if you only did that, have you tried this? Maybe you should do less of this. You know, and
drive-by parenting, I call it.
everybody needs who's walking the walk that we walk together, needs a space or a person with whom they can describe without having to explain.
Yeah.
For me, there was a trust issue as well, which I think I've carried around. I haven't got a one person. I haven't got a parent that's either A, close by, or would be able to handle my son in a meltdown. And I think it's partly because of my trust issue as well. I'm not saying that someone couldn't look after my son, but it's just that if something happened in my head, it's not worth the risk for me.
Yeah.
I can't do it. So,
and I think actually, I really hear that, Chris, because I think what does happen is that after a while, you don't even look for it. So we are actually, as parents, I'm not speaking for all parents, honestly, but many of us don't need the strategies. We don't need someone to tell us how to do it or to jump in and helicopter in and do it for us. We just need someone to hear us.
Yeah.
I just need someone to go, wow, you got a child on suicide watch. I went through that, or that must be really hard.
So
you don't need to solve my problem. I'm not asking you to solve it. It's unsolvable right now. So don't try to solve it. Just sit with me in it. Because when you sit with me in it, I feel that empathy and that makes me feel better. So I think that's why, for me, a support group or even a support friend, I have 2 friends I go dog walking with. We've all got similar children. So that really helps. And I don't need someone to childmind then. I just need to be heard. Because often, the thing that disappears is our own voice. So to try and find that agency for ourselves, we're so busy advocating for our children. Hello, we're still here. I'm still here. I'm not just called mum. I'm actually Carrie. And those things are really important to try and recapture and trying to hold on to that. That's worth fighting for, because that is your sanity. And that is eventually our children will grow older and we will get a little bit more independence back. And I still want to have some sense of who I am by then.
That's so important, I think. And I think something else that you guys are doing really well, and this is something that I think needs to be addressed more in all parenting communities, is that you seem very united. And I think whether you're a single parent or who's got, father or the mother in the picture somewhere else, or if you are in your situation, 30 years married, but the united front with parenting, I think, makes such a difference with how our kids are able to respond. And they see that. My daughter's adept at playing things off each other. So we went through a period where it was very disjointed, and mummy said this. Really? I said she couldn't do that. She told me you said you could. Well, we'd have an argument and realized after a short while,
you've been playing
engineering this.
You've been playing, yeah.
She's doing the Michael Jackson thing and just eating popcorn watching. And you guys do that really well. Is that something that you've done consciously, or is it something that has come about organically?
I think it's something that's come about organically, but it's something that both, actually, both organically and with a realization that this isn't working. We need to find a different way. And we're always analyzing our own parenting and our own strategizing. And, we're always sort of like debriefing as well. How did that go? Was that right? Why did that? Well, why was that a tragedy?
Yeah.
I went in sort of like offering an olive branch and the whole house got bombed. What happened there? What did I do wrong? And we were doing that for one another. We've I would say we've devised a way of parenting, but that would be an oversimplification. I think like all parents with neurodivergent children, you devise a number of ways, and sometimes on the fly. There's a phrase that I use with Carrie that I went through a whole period of my life where I felt like every time I found an answer to the question, they changed the question.
Yeah.
So, you just have to constantly, and we are constantly saying to one another, could that have been done differently? Not just could you have done that differently, but how do you think I could have done that differently?
I mean, I think
take that criticism on the cheek as well.
Yeah, although I have to say, I think David is being very sweet. I think we had a number of years where it was hell.
Yeah.
And I would say that was because, our relationship was fine. But the minute we started talking about parenting, we were on completely different pages. David was like,
different
we
continents.
need to
Mars, Venus, that whole thing.
We were orbiting totally different planets at one point. And I think that was because I shifted very quickly. I went, okay, these children, it's not going to work this. Okay, quickly, let's just get some new ideas. And David was like, no, children need consistency. This is how we chose to parent. This is what we're going to do. And so, I mean, that's sort of probably an exaggeration, but that's the pages we were on. So that would end up with me going, but maybe we could try it like this to begin with. It was like, maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that. David was like, no, we're sticking to this, till eventually my thing became in front of the kids. Why are you doing it like that? So I was doing wrong. David was doing wrong. I felt like I wasn't being heard. David felt like he wasn't being heard. So I think it was probably about 2 years we've struggled to find that same place.
And it was 2 years in which every disconnect we had was around the kids.
Yeah.
And I don't even think we realized it at the time, that actually every argument was around the kids, every disagreement was around the kids, every disconnection was around the kids. And I think I think I'm to blame for that. I had a very set idea of what parenting was. And while Carrie had recognized that we needed a change, I was still in a mindset that said, no, if we keep doing this for long enough, they'll change. You know, and Carrie had a phrase that she once used in conversation that really I should have taken on board, where somebody said, your kid's better now. And Carrie said, well, I don't know what you mean. They're still autistic. And it's just like, you know, they're going to change. I'm going to wake up one morning and they are going to be different.
They're not sick.
I mean? They're not sick. They're not going to recover because there's nothing to recover from.
Yes.
They are as they are. So I need to change.
I think guys go through this more, and I'm talking in horrific generalizations here, so apologies if it sounds like I'm being labeling or anything like that, but I think it is something generally that guys go through. I think generally we're problem solvers. It's why often men are really bad listeners, but we're looking for problem, solution,
silver bullet, the silver bullet that's gonna.
Yes, that's it. Waiting for Harry Potter to walk in with his wand, and there it's all fixed.
It's one of the things that I did, and I am slightly ashamed of it, before I kind of read up and got involved with the autistic community. So I always taught my son as a puzzle to solve before actually taking it on board. And it was such a tough pill to swallow, which actually leads to my next question. One of the things that my son has taught me and changed me as a person is that he's taught me patience. How has your children changed you personality wise?
Wow, that's such a good question. Wow. In so many ways, for me, I would say that however we voice this, for all of us, it might be in a different way. But for me, like arrowed prayer, God, change my situation. This is so hard. I can't go on like this. I can't keep going to drop my child off at school, and then all the parents are talking about SATs results and getting tutors in to help them with their SATs. And I'm just thinking, please keep drawing breath. Please just live. I can't go on like this. Change my situation. And after a while, my arrowed prayers changed to change me, because this situation may not change. And I don't even know the outcome of this situation, but I do know the one thing I do have control of, the one thing I have autonomy over is myself. So what can I change about me so that I don't want to be a victim. I hate that idea. I want to survive this. I don't really want to just survive it. I want to do this well. How do we do this well? And we got to a stage where, because we've got 4 children and they're all complex in different ways. I remember one day specifically, there was some event going on that was around, it was something really big with one of the kids. And before we responded to, we were in our bedroom, just you and I, and we sat down I said, just sit down 30 seconds. He's not going to change anything. Sit down. How do we do this bit well? Mm-hmm. And we it was so amazing. It was like, we were like, oh, okay, before we respond, let's just work out how we're going to do it. And that attitude that I found in that space of changing me, but not for negative, not to become something less than, not to become a victim, not to become like, I'm such a crushed human, but actually how do I do it well? I can't even tell you how much that changed me. It changed me entirely. It changed all my reasons for all my purpose in life.
I call that shakabuku.
Yeah.
The film Grosse Point Blank, and he talks about shakabuku, the swift spiritual kick to the head that realigns your perceptions. Yes. And I think every parent at some point goes through something like that, where it's like,
Yeah.
light bulb. And
Wow. Yes.
And I think beyond that, actually, I think you're absolutely right there. And even beyond that, I'd say that for SEN parents or for SEN fathers, I'm just speaking as a father for a moment, the child becomes the parent of the father in as much as I was a person that I no longer am. Before I had children, I was a different person. I had a different perception. I had a different outlook. I had a different set of expectations.
yeah,
Having the children that we have has changed me, but changed me for the better. There are things that I know I wouldn't know. There are ways that I see the world and understand the world that I would never have bothered to learn because I wouldn't have had to. And so I wouldn't have needed to, so I wouldn't have bothered. I am richer, probably more stressed, but
you're like me, a full head of hair before all this.
I'm the same, man. I'm the same with me. It's like, look, I'm 23. It's like, that's how much has changed me. But seriously, yes, we have our challenges. And sometimes I look and say, why couldn't I have had a different, why can't it be simple? Why can't it be straightforward? Why does 2 and 2 not add up to 4? And yet, I look at myself and think that there are things within me, characteristics within me, qualities within me, and every SEN parent I've met is the same, that I would never have known were there were they not unearthed by need, were they not dug out and excavated by necessity.
Well, they say, don't they? Yeah, necessity is the mother of all invention, and I think it's also the mother of reinvention. When it comes to ourselves.
Oh my gosh, Chris, that's such a deep question. I'm sitting here like, what? I feel like I've metamorphosized into something else. So I can't even begin to think about how much it's changed. I think the minute that you realize David is just going to walk off and just and I shall just talk for a minute. But normal is an ideology. And the minute you start to explore that, life changes. Grey is a great color. Black and white thinking and the way we make everything fit into a box is not great. Grey is such an exciting color to live in. So I think once you start exploring that, I think the world looks different. The world really looks different. You take it outside the binary, you realize that, hang on a minute, all those normal people are telling me how life has to work. Hang on a minute, that's their ideology. What about, there's like millions of us here that could create groundswell and rise up and have a voice that says something that's so different and so hopeful and so inclusive. That to me is super exciting.
It is. I think what you said there moves on because it's embracing that change and embracing the differences. But you've had to experience that in so many ways because your son, Tylen, is it the first trans and first autistic person on Hollyoaks?
Yeah, so the first autistic person of colour on telly ever playing an autistic character. So yeah, broke ground. I think, our children have so many intersections. So Ty is autistic, mixed race, trans, queer. So all of those things, all of them are firsts.
Like this isn't an exclusive enough community. I'm going to go here now.
Basically, what we're really saying was there was one white man who was autistic that played an autistic character. So apart from that one white man, Ty's the first in everything. Yeah.
I love there is that you've embraced it, but you've encouraged them to take this sort of attitude out into the world. So whether it's been a deliberate thing or an organic thing, they're taking the message out there of diversity and difference and making something different.
Yeah,
we've tried to encourage our children to discover who they are and to help in that journey. I think in many ways, either quite consciously and intentionally or inadvertently, we help or we hinder our children from discovering who they are. And I think that this links in with the last question as well. Part of the drive and the desire in me, certainly, to help them discover who they are began to arise at the point where I stopped feeling as though I needed to try and tell them who I wanted them to be. At the point that I stopped being invested in who I wanted them to be. I was able to begin to encourage them to discover who they actually are.
I think that's amazing. It's I feel like grasshopper situation here. It's this wisdom coming through. It's like, and I think that journey's so true and I think in parenting in general, I don't know a person who has become a parent who hasn't been changed. And when you hear about the people who haven't, it's always in a negative way. Something happens, and like you said, I think your focus goes from being you. And I mean, you're a very tight unit, so it was very much David and Carrie. And then suddenly you have a family, and send or not, you change because suddenly your responsibilities go from all about me and where I'm going to actually I've got this life in my hands, and it's down to me to make sure it's the best life for them.
One of the things that I found is my emotions have been heightened since I've had the kids. I mean, before, I think from the ages of maybe 14 to 30, I hadn't cried. But now I don't know what it is, lack of sleep, or I mean, if my son is in a Christmas play, I've got a lump in my throat. It is horrible because I don't know what it is. It's the pride thing.
It's those estrogen donuts you keep eating, mate.
I don't know what it is. I don't. But even adverts on TV, if there's some sort of advert and something kicks in,
you're
a tear rolling down my cheek. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I find that my emotions have been heightened because of kids.
I think some of that is to do with how much we put value on stuff. So I think that if we're brought up to value, again, this is like whatever we call normal. So normal is a rich, status-filled, good-looking, these are the things that we're all going towards. And then suddenly you're like, okay, that isn't my world now. And then, you feel like sometimes you're down there in the dark, and then you fish around and you're like, wow, there's a bit of gold down here. Oh my gosh, this is incredible. So when you look at your child in that school play, you're like, my child wouldn't even walk in the classroom. This is the child who didn't show up for any rehearsal. This is the child that sat on the teacher's lap in every assembly. And look at this kid is now on the stage and they're singing. For us parents,
absolutely,
we are so out the box happy, and I think that so we count our small wins, but also it's not in a kind of, oh, isn't it good? Like, because obviously your child's managing to do that now, which you still have the attitude going on around you. It's that I genuinely feel that, like I'm crying at neighbours now. I'm crying at all the things like that I shouldn't even. I'm crying at Hollyoaks, and so all of those things that we would have just overlooked before suddenly become like precious. They're so precious and they're amazing. The world becomes incredible.
And I think it's because we know as neurodivergent parents that our families are on an entirely different journey.
Yeah.
And I think when you're neurotypical, you see a kid on a stage, and it's almost like metaphorically, your desire is to see your child cross the finish line, and ideally cross the finish line first.
Yeah.
When you are the parent of a child that is neurodivergent, you know the journey they've had to make it to the start line.
Yeah.
The fact that they're even in the race is a win.
Yeah.
It's like we celebrate winners without ever recognizing how far a journey somebody has had to come to arrive at the point they're at.
Yeah, so actually picking up on that, it's amazing because in a way Thailand has gone over the winning line and is in Hollyoaks, but actually that's wonderful, and of course we're incredibly proud. I am just as proud of the fact that Thai can get on a train and sit backwards. Because that would have been more of a challenge than acting, which they absolutely love and they find really easy. So I think that it's that the world it's upside down world, isn't it? You're looking for different things, and not only are you appreciating small wins, but you learn to live in that space. I actually want to live in that space because I actually prefer living in that space. Because
what it means is in life, we don't just look at an end result. We have learned not to just look at the end of the race and say who won. We've learned to look and say they did a step, they've taken another step. Oh my goodness, they've taken another step. I don't care who else is in the race. I don't care where they finish in relation to anyone else, because we're looking and seeing how far they've gotten in relation to where they've come from.
And I think if you can take that from your own experience and then transfer that to build your community in that way. I think one of the things we've learned is, we'll have friends over perhaps sitting in our kitchen our son might have sworn, slammed the kitchen door and stomped upstairs. That's Nathan. And David and I might look at each other and go, the guests are thinking, these are the worst parents I've ever seen. Was it just me, or did you hear that child just say the F word, walk upstairs, slam the door and stomp up? Yeah, but actually, that's the first time he hasn't punched anybody. So for us,
it's a win.
This is a win. He has actually regulated himself to just go, rah, walk out and step away from the violence. That for us is a massive win.
And that's
so we are able, because David and I was trying to share those moments with the people there and then and go, I know that what you're thinking is this of us right now, but let us tell you what we're doing in our parenting journey. We're not dealing with 10 things because that's too many. We're dealing with one thing. It's simply not to hit. That's all that child has to do in his day. He can be an absolute nightmare he can not eat his food. He can decide he doesn't want to wash. Yes, including all of those things. As long as he doesn't hit, because that's the thing we're really working on.
And so that really sort of like is an example of the metaphor when I was saying about we're running an entirely different race.
Yeah.
We're running, all of us are running an
day.
entirely different race. Chris, when your son is on stage, no wonder you're crying, because he's on the stage.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter what he's doing on the stage.
Yeah.
The fact is, what a journey he's taken to make it onto that stage.
That leads me to my last question, which was, you labeled yourself warrior parents. And I think the story you told kind of reflects that. What point did you come to that you thought, we are this? This is how we become warrior parents. And how did that display itself in the decisions you made from there?
No one labels themselves a warrior parent. You become.
The
label visits you.
that scared me a little bit when you said that.
I'd love to be one of those warrior parents, because they really have a great life. I don't know.
At the point that you have to start standing up for your child, you're a warrior parent. At the point that you know you're walking a walk that other parents aren't walking, and it's misunderstood, even by your closest family sometimes, you become a warrior parent. At the point that you have to start facing up to the authorities, the local authority, the school teachers, the school head, you become a warrior parent. At the time that you have to fight to try and get the required support, the necessary support, the reasonable adjustments made on behalf of your child, so they're on a level playing field with anyone else, you become a warrior parent.
And I think that's what I'm getting at, is that idea that I think a lot of people are warrior parents, but don't realize it. We've got an army out there.
There's an army of warrior parents.
I don't know they're an army yet.
They are. Yes, please push this door. This is great, because there are no parents as good as SEND parents. Let me tell you that. They are the most amazing parents. They are the ones everyone, the neurotypical parents, should be turning to and going, what is it you're doing there? Because this is off my grid. You are amazing. They're extraordinary people. Yeah. And in our group, when we meet, I'm always like, I glean so much from these people, because they come up with ideas and strategies, and they've had to work their stuff out. So yes, and yes, let's keep pushing that button and go, if enough of us raised our voices, there's probably a big majority happening out here. There's a lot of people who are fighting this fight out here. Yeah. So let's put our voices together and get some change happening.
There are platoons and regiments of warrior parents who have yet to be mobilized because they think they're the only ones.
They're on their own.
That's the biggest thing, isn't it? There's this, you feel isolated, you feel alone, and yet it's like hashtag send warrior parents. Get it out
I don't think send parents, with send parents, there's no one that pushes their limits harder than a send parent. They feel that they've hit the limit and they go further, and they do this on a regular basis.
100%. Yeah, let's praise SEN parents. Well done.
Hey, our love goes out to you,
parents.
David, Carrie, I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. This has been an extraordinary conversation, and I hope it resonates with a lot of people.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome, and thank you. So there you have it. That was David and Carrie Grant. They are amazing, aren't they? Absolutely fantastic to be able to interview them. All their links will be in the description. And if you want to get in touch with them, or if you want to find out more about what they do head over. It's fantastic. As I say, please do go hit like, hit subscribe, ring the bell. You'll always know when I've got new content coming up, and you'll be helping me reach that 10,000 subscriber mark, which would be just huge for me. So thank you. I will see you again on the next episode. In the meantime, please do stay safe.